What is up, Junior Golf Blueprint fans? So, today on the show, we got the Mississippi State PGA Golf Management Director, Adam Scott. We're not talking the Adam Scott, but my Adam Scott. Adam and I were actually in school together first semester. He was the senior while I was a freshman, and then he became the coordinator of the Mississippi State PGM program while I was in school for a little bit. He went to Colorado, directed their program in Colorado, and then actually came back to Mississippi to be the Mississippi State head professional at the university course. And then now he's the director of the program. And while we were in school, Jeff Ackerson was the director, and he was an awesome director for us both, big influence on us both. And now Adam, is taking this reign and trying to take the Mississippi State program to the next level. And I have full faith that he can do that. In this podcast, we talk a lot about how the program has influenced our lives and helped our career. This is a podcast I've wanted to do for a while because it's great for anybody who's not getting the recruitment you want, but you don't want to leave golf. You want to stay in the business. You still want to play tournaments. You still want to, be around the sport because you love it. And this is a great podcast to show you how that's possible. And obviously, I'm a product of that. Almost 10 years now from when I graduated. And I can't speak highly enough of the program. There's only 20 some odd schools that have this program now, and it's the real deal if you want to be in the golf business. So before we get in the show, one little point to clean up. I'm still struggling with the internet stuff. I'm figuring it out slowly, so I apologize as the video will cut out a little bit and the audio got a little rough at certain points, but it will be just fine. You'll get the gist, no problem, I'm sure. And I hope you guys enjoy the show and enjoy Adam because him and I have a great chat. And make sure you watch this on YouTube because him and I going back and forth causes me to giggle a lot. So anyways, let's get into the show, and thanks for listening. And make sure you support the show by leaving us a review and subscribing to the show and our social media platforms at Mount Walter PGA. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to us on the YouTube channel. Let's go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today on the podcast, we got my man, Adam Scott. I have known this guy for way too long, unfortunately. It's tipping the scales of close to 15 years now, Adam, and which is slightly scary to think about. And he was a graduating senior when I was a freshman rolling into Starkville for the first time, and then he ends up turning around and comes back to the program as a coordinator position for Mississippi State PGM program, right? And that's where I graduated from. And he's bebopped around a little bit since then, doing some different things, but he is now the director of the program, taking the shoes of Jeff Ackerson, and is running the Mississippi State program for PGA Golf Management. And Adam, the reason why I have you on here today is because, we're both graduates of this Mississippi State program. It's been one of the better programs across the country to get students to jobs, to the alumni here in Nashville alone is absolutely crazy, which is one of the reasons why I ended up where I am. And but before we get into all the great stuff that PJ and the PJ programs provide, why don't you tell us about how you got into the game of golf and how you ended up at Mississippi State?
Man, I appreciate that introduction. I thought about that this morning, how you already said the 15 years. I had kind of forgotten that you were an incoming freshman and I was a graduating senior, and there was a time where I could really pinpoint when people were graduating, and now it's like I blinked and I've been out of college for, it'll be 14 years this year. And I forget who overlaps with who now. I'll talk to graduates and I'm like, so-and-so. And they're like, no, I wasn't around when that person, so I have a tough time keeping it all straight a little bit now. But for me, I grew up in North Alabama, and grew up right down I-65 from where you're at right now in Coleman, and was lucky enough to pick up the game at 12 years old. And for me, in my age, it was the Tiger boom. It was late 90s. It was I got my first set of clubs, a little 5 club set through Golfsmith that my dad built for me in the garage in February of '97. So that was my birthday right around that time. So Tiger won the Masters that April.
3 months later.
3 months later. And that spring I loved football. You can't grow up in Alabama and not love football. I wear a different shade of red now where it's more maroon. But I went to spring training football that March for junior high ball. We had just gotten out of Pop Warner and worked our way up, and there was a time where this is sixth grade. Everybody's like shaving, and I had to tape my pants to my knees. Like I was so much younger, at least in development, than everybody. And we were an option team, so we're all out there getting smoked for like a week, and I'm like, is this fun? Like I'm not having any fun. And I found myself like lingering to be on the golf course at those practices. I'd be thinking about golf because my dad and I had my dad played a little bit, but he had not really had anybody to play with. So It got to the point where now we're starting to play. And at that time the economy was doing really well. We grabbed a little membership at the local municipal of just basically unlimited golf, and it really just stuck from there. And while we in our industry, and especially with junior golfers, would never tell anybody to quit all their sports and focus, that's essentially what I did. Because I played basketball, baseball, and did the other stuff just because that was the natural progression of now it's the next thing, and now it's the next thing, and I always liked football more. Basketball, I was terrible, and baseball. I was a second baseman, so that meant I was a decent glove but a less than adequate arm. So golf just really hooked me because my dad really told me, he said, look, this is something you can do for life. This is something that we'll be able to do together for a long, long time. And you can really excel at this. Because at that time it was like, it just really wasn't cool yet.
Yeah.
Still, even when Tiger coming on the scene, it became that. Right. But it still really wasn't. There wasn't a lot of people that played golf with me, so I grew up playing with my dad's buddies. That was how I played, and going through high school and growing up where I did. Just mom would drop us off at 6:45, 7 o'clock in the morning. She managed a bank. My dad worked in Birmingham, and come get me at 5:30, and she'd give me a $5 bill, and that could get me two Powerades and a hot dog, and me and two of my friends that are PGA members now, we'd play golf all day. We just walk all day long. Now, if I walk 36 holes in a day now, I'd probably have to go to the hospital. But like at that time, when I get nostalgic about golf, I think about that time from about 12 to really 15, before I could drive. Because before I could drive, I couldn't leave.
Right.
You had to walk, and you couldn't leave the facility. So it's like, I better go work on my game because I can't just walk home.
Right.
And it changed a little when you get into high school, but that's how I started in the game, and was it's funny to get older now, and I'm sure you have similar stories. Your buddies from high school that didn't play, when you go home, they're like, hey, can you come play golf with us and show us some things? And it's a funny thing how those relationships have sort of changed, because they're like, you're an expert, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're like, I kind of get paid to do this. So I'd rather just come home and maybe not play, but but sure, So it's neat how everybody we grew up with are now all playing.
No, that's it, and it is kind of amusing the kids that didn't play when we were growing up, because I get those phone calls a lot, and I'm just kind of like, what are you really trying to get at here? Are you trying to just escape your situation for 4 hours and drink beer, or are you really wanting to play golf? Because if you're trying to do the first, you can go do something else for 4 hours and be just fine.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
So how did you end up at State then? How did the PGA school appeal to you and become the decision you wanted to take on?
So growing up in Alabama, you're pretty much heading to Auburn or Tuscaloosa. That's kind of the choices, at least in your mind, or you go to work. And and I had a small tiny discussion or two regarding JUCO golf, because I wasn't I was probably better sophomore junior year than I was my senior year. I didn't have a great senior year, but I didn't also understand what it took to do it at that next level. Didn't really know. Look, I was good enough in our circle, and could shoot some red numbers, but didn't really realize the training and the things that it really took to play at that next level. So college golf really became a thing that was, if I'm going to do it, it's going to happen at a JUCO basis, and I had this longing to just leave. Didn't really know what that meant, but somebody that was on my high school golf team, two of individuals actually, Daniel Bird, who's now at Southern Hills, PGA member, and Matthew Livengood, who's down at Terry Pines Country Club in Pullman. They're both PGA members. They were older than me. We played golf together in high school. They had come to Mississippi State, and I'm like, what's at Mississippi State, because I didn't I mean, never been to Starkville, had never, really, all I knew was Mississippi State was a game on the schedule, right, for Alabama.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about it, and it's sort of like you can go to school for golf, and it seems like a crazy thing that this is 2003. The program's been around at that point for 18 years, and I've never even heard of it.
Right.
And that's a similar story we even hear to today. I mean, the program now is 35 years old, and you still have people that can't believe you can go to school for college.
Right.
And it's one of those aha things of coming over here to visit, and everything just sort of felt right. Everything felt correct. It's like, this is exactly what I should do, and I fell in love with Starkville because Starkville was a similar size to where I grew up, a little smaller, but I felt comfortable with everything. Didn't get overwhelmed by campus size, and it's just one of those things where you go play the university course and everything just feels correct. And at that point, I knew nothing about the industry. It was just golf. Yes, that was as far as I got. It's just like, if I can figure out a way to do this in some capacity. At this point, you know nothing about the program, nothing about the industry, nothing about the opportunities. You just know that in college, if I can do something that is related to the game, I think I'm at least starting to go towards something that I'm passionate about.
Right.
And that's how really how it all happened.
Yeah, and that's a very common pattern when I talk to kids that are making that decision to play college golf, but they don't want to give up the game. And I tell them about PGM and the PGA programs. Is like, look, if you if the waking up at 5 a.m. to do workouts and then to go travel for 6 weeks out of the semester and all that doesn't really excite you, but you still don't want to give it up, like, here you go. I mean, this is a pretty good option. You can still play in tournaments. You learn the industry. You can get a job in the industry where you can still play in tournaments at a competitive level. I mean, it's a good option. And it is crazy because
I think the funny thing is, the funny thing about college athletics and scholarships across the board is, I think you get the perception that it is sort of the good life. It's your room and board's taken care of, and you don't realize how you're going to earn that scholarship. It is my wife, for your Tennessee listeners, is a Farragut graduate,
right?
And won state championships and done stuff there. She came to Mississippi State. That's luckily how we met. And when she would sort of talk about her day, I'm like, oh, this isn't like this sort of upper crust life that I figured a college athlete had. It's like you said, it's workouts, it's study hall, it's to figure out how to keep up on your studies, because they're not going to give you a pass there. And I remember thinking, like, as much as I think playing college golf would have been good, I don't know if I would have succeeded in that rigid of a thing as a young man. I think I would have struggled. But we've heard Richard Sherman talk about that, from the NFL, about a Stanford athlete, what they have to do, and you hear that and go, wow, that is they're earning that scholarship. So this thought that we have sometimes that these young athletes have it made, it is a really difficult. It takes a huge commitment to not only get to that point, but to maintain that scholarship. It's not like it's not guaranteed for 4 years, right? No. It can certainly fall off, and that's not to discourage college golf, because I think if you're good enough to do that and get your college paid for, that's a great thing. But for me, I think looking back on it, I certainly made the right decision. But how about you? I mean, being in Pennsylvania, because I remember you going back up, setting you up on an internship to head back up to home. But like, it's different for me, because Starkville's 3 hours from home,
right?
So it's not. I mean, that's not out of the realm of that. Makes that's an easy deal. So how about you? When you're starting to look at that, like, what are you thinking from PA? You had to look at Penn State. You had to look at some other PGM schools. But how in the world did that all happen for you?
Well, I was so I did do the Penn State tour. I did the Carolinas, all 4 of the schools in the Carolinas, which was the Clemson, the Methodist, Coastal, and I'm blanking on the last one, but
Campbell.
Campbell. And so I did all those, and then I was like, man, I didn't like any of the Carolina schools. I happened to go to a national event in Arizona, so I played in an event at Carson, at the Carson course for Arizona State, and they had a program, and that was not up my alley. I'll tell you that. It was like on an old rundown Air Force base, and not trashing Arizona State. One of my best friends graduated from that program, but I kind of walked around. I was like, nope. And I was like, if I can't be on main campus, I'm out. And so, when we ended up in Starkville, it was the same thing. I played in an event down at what's the Trent Jones course in Opelika, Grand National. I played a 2-day event down there, and then we drove across the state to Mississippi to check out Starkville. And it's actually a funny story on that. So I can't tell you how we got from Opelika to Starkville still, but there was some old barbecue joint off this highway. My dad and I were starving, and we pull off at this place, and we go inside. There's like deer heads up on the wall, and I think there's even a coon up there maybe. And
pretty standard.
Yeah, and the food rating was like 72 or something like that. And you're like, well, this is either going to be the best barbecue on the planet, or I'm going to be curling over when the time we get to Starkville. And luckily it was the former, and it was delicious and it was great. So then we get to Starkville, and I showed up right at the end of Doc LeMay's run, and Jeff was taking the reins. So I actually met Doc at the university course the night we showed up, and chatted with Doc for like an hour over at the chipping green, the old chipping green. And so we chatted for a while, and I was like, man, that guy's, he's got his stuff about him. This is, and the university course was still, a great track then. Now it's even more awesome. And so, we go back, and then we stay in the hotel, and the next day I go meet Jeff, and we walk around the campus, and I get like the official tour, and some little, southern blonde girl in her skirt was walking around showing me the place, and I was like, this place doesn't suck. and so then, Jeff and I have our little meeting, and what was interesting about it was, at that point, Starkville was actually the last place I visited.
Gotcha.
And at that point, a lot of the program directors didn't like talk to me directly. Like, they were talking to my dad a lot. And kind of like almost leaving me out of the conversation a little bit. Like, they'd ask me a few things here or there, but then when they would talk about academics, price, internships, stuff like that, they were just looking at my dad. Jeff was like one of the only, I'm not going to say only, but there's I think the Penn State guy and I think maybe the Methodist guy was the only two that actually kind of like talked to me. And my dad, like, that kind of like stood out to him. Like, Jeff was communicating with me, and my dad was kind of in the background. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was a big selling ticket for my old man. And so having that conversation with Jeff, I was like, man, this guy's pretty cool. Like, I think I could see myself coming here. And then, like, same thing you said, like, the size of the campus felt right. The size of the town felt right. You go to Methodist is the same size as my high school. I was like, I love it, but I can't do high school politics again. Like, I'm out. I need something bigger. And so that's what locked me up, was that those kind of conversations with Doc and Jeff and just the atmosphere of state. So then, we get down there, and it was just like, it was a home run. I was like, I'm sold. And the distance for me, I mean, and I'm an extrovert. I don't have any problem talking to a wall for 15 minutes. It was easy to make friends. Everybody was cool. PGM's kind of like our own little clique a little bit. So we buddied up, and I still talk to a lot of the guys I was in school with, and a couple of them were in my wedding. So it was awesome. So, Starkville and the PGA program for me was, and then what I tell kids is, like, it's a great option if you don't want to give up the game and you want to do something more with it. And when I showed up, I had no idea what I was going to do. I mean, at that second internship you were talking about at Overbrook, I was searching out like the sales reps, going to talk to them about like what it's like to be a sales rep, because that's what I knew from my dad being in building supplies. And then, here I am, teaching now. You know what I mean? I had no clue. I went on the third internship and I saw what Virgil was doing. I started doing some math, and I was like, I like those numbers. All right, so that's enough about me.
That's funny. That's funny though, how all that goes for you, because I wonder. Yeah, so Dr. LeMay was the director the whole time I was in, and Jeff was the assistant. And we always kind of thought, because Dr. LeMay wasn't a golf professional, and and Jeff was. So there must have been a time right around your visits. I mean, that happened in 2007, right? That would have happened prior to you coming, because in 2007, I was on my final internship at Pebble Beach, and Dr. LeMay called me to say our fiscal year in Mississippi State for everything is July 1 to June 30th. So a lot of times people will retire in June,
right?
Because it'll help sort of budgets and things for the following fiscal. And Dr. May calls me in June and says, "Hey, I'm retiring. Like, I'm done. I'm gonna go do some other stuff. So at this point, it was starting to hit me in senior year, much like you're talking about figuring out teaching was your route. It was starting to hit me that my final internship, it was a resort golf course, obviously Pebble. I'd worked a private club, I'd worked a public golf course. But at Pebble, there were a lot of interns from all over the country at other schools, and they were all level 1s and 2s, and I was a level 3. And I found myself going to Chipotle like 3 times a week. We didn't have Chipotle in the South at the time, so it was a huge deal. You could show your college ID, and they'd give you a free drink. And then at that time, the burrito was like $5.50.
Yeah.
You want to talk about like eating up some Chipotle. Now we'd hit that up all the time.
Yeah.
And I would help those guys do their books,
Right.
and do their schoolwork and get ready for testing. And it was one of those moments where, in a moment of clarity, like, why don't I do this for like a living? Like, why don't I figure out a way to be involved in education with the PGA? And Dr. LeMay announces his retirement. I'm starting to put all the things together that Jeff will ascend to the director role. His job will be available when I graduate. And I called him, and he was on vacation. And I said, Jeff, who is one of the most important people in my life in terms of mentoring and things that he's done for me and taught me. And I said, where are you at? And he said, I'm on vacation with my family. I'm like, this won't take long. I know you're going to be the next director. And he's like, that hasn't been decided. I'm like, let's not play this game. You're going to be the guy. So I want your old job. And he's like, I need to sit down. Because while Jeff had helped me a ton, we had been at odds a few times over some of my behavior. And me not being a very upstanding citizen of the PGA Golf Management program. And he said, look, we won't know even if I become the director, we won't even know if we're going to hire that position. And I said, well, look, let me know like what I can hang in the office. I'm kidding with him. I'm hammering him every week. Like, what can I do? What can I do? I get back to campus in August. I walk in the office and I'm like, yeah, this will go here and that. And he's starting to, the wheels are starting to turn now. He's like, maybe he's serious. Because I think they did a job interview. They did. And they didn't hire the candidate. They did have a very limited candidate pool at the time. So they opened it back up, and he pulled me in his office in like September. This is September of 2007. So you've been on campus for like 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're about to open up the job opportunity again. We'd like for you to apply. And I'm like, this is happening. All while this is happening, Pebble's trying to get me to come back out there as an assistant. Dang. So I'm sitting there, and this happens to a lot of seniors. So for everybody listening that might be looking for PGA Golf Management, the jobs right now are so vast and they're so deep. There's so many things you can do. And I'm sitting there going, like, now what? So end up getting the offer to stay at Mississippi State and had to turn Pebble down, which when you say that to somebody, they go like, are you crazy? It's
I turned down Oakmont to go to West Haven.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
That was the hardest phone call I ever had to make.
So you have these opportunities that present themselves, and you do what's ultimately the best for you.
Right. No,
you do whatever is the best for you in your life. And it's hard to see that on the front end.
Yeah. And it's funny you tell that story because I still remember it because me as a freshman, I met you at the golf course, and I think we played in like some match or tournament together or something. Or maybe that was Brian. I might have played against Brian Farrell somewhere like that. But you two are buddies. But anyways, so I remember the job coming up and that they were interviewing for people to be the coordinator. And I knew you threw your name in the ring, but I did not know all the stuff leading up to that moment where you were harassing Jeff to get the job. I just was like, man, Adam's got some cojones up here thinking he's just going to be the coordinator, and he's got like zero work experience outside of internship. Like, okay. And then you get it, and I was like, oh, great. Now we got to look at like Houndstooth, Alabama Tide, and like this is going to be awesome. This is just going to go swimmingly in the office now. I remember seeing you at football games wearing the freaking Houndstooth pants with maroon top, and I'm like, what in the heck is going on right now?
That's right.
But I think what you were going to say about the job opportunities. Like when I graduated, I somehow bested like 130 some odd pros for a course in New Jersey, Upper Montclair Country Club. I had
that's right.
West Haven was figuring their stuff out, so I could go back. I had the Overbrook job coming back. Jim Haas, which I think you remember, he's maybe a little bit before your time. He was at a club I caddied at. He was like, if you come back here, you're never leaving. Don't come see me, but I have a job for you if you want it. And then another guy down in South Carolina who I worked for at Philly was now the director of golf at Wexford in Hilton Head. And so I'm sitting there just going, holy crap. Like, I'm juggling all these, apples, and I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to end up. And again, that's not every situation. I was very lucky. I'll say that. But if you do a good job on these rotations, I mean, we have 100% job placement. Everybody that goes out gets a job, and that's, in this day and age, that's unheard of for degrees, in industry. Like, you just don't get placed at places. And so that was what another thing that appealed to my old man and me was like, okay, if I do this, the odds of me getting a job are pretty good, unless I'm a complete idiot in college, which I bordered the line a couple times. But I think that's something I want you to talk about is like, so because people ask me like what I actually studied when I was in school, and I was like, well, I technically got a marketing degree, but I also got through all my Class A bookwork. And so when I graduated, I had a marketing diploma, which ultimately was not the big reason, but was an easy knock for me not to go to Penn State, was I had a park and rec degree coming out of Penn State instead of a marketing degree. And I was like, well, I don't really want to be a gym teacher.
You grew up a Penn State fan, right?
Oh, dude. Yeah. Like Paterno hard, and was brutally had my heart ripped out, at the end of that era. But, I mean, every Saturday I watched Penn State football. It was like you in Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing. And so, like, honestly, I showed up to State, and again, I only know Big Ten football, right? And very sheltered in my Big Ten arena. You know how many hard conversations I had to have with all you SEC nut jobs? Like, I did not understand any of the rivalries. I get down here, first game, LSU whips us 63-0. I'm like,
oh my gosh,
we are terrible. I'm like, this is going to be the hardest 4 years of my life. And so, so you get a good degree, you get your Class A.
The funny thing about the program itself is because it's nationally known and the reputation precedes itself. You get people from all over. Nobody grows up a Mississippi State fan and comes and does PGA Golf Management. Everybody comes from all over. So that right now we've got 26 different states represented in the program. So it's a unique, diverse blend of students that come from all different backgrounds. You got everything from Muni kids from the middle of nowhere, Georgia, all the way up to kids that are private clubs in upstate New York. It's a really unique blend of students that come into the program, and you're right to the point of the PGA of America. Right now there's 18 schools, and upon those approvals of those programs, they decide sort of where the degree goes. And our degree luckily sits here in the College of Business as a AACSB accredited College of Business, which is some less than like 5% of College of Business are accredited by the AACSB. And you've already said it, the degree is a Bachelor of Business Administration and Marketing with a concentration in PGA Golf Management. And to put that in layman's terms, you're a marketing student and all your electives are golf.
Right.
That's essentially how you explain that to a high school, to a prospective high school student, and realize that myself or our staff are going to be teaching the PGA of America's curriculum. So it gets to a very dual major type feel,
right,
because of the requirements that happen outside of your marketing degree. And it's funny because on campus you will say, "What are you majoring in?" You're a PGA Golf Management student, PGM. You're in golf. They're like, "That's a major? Like, what do you do? Just go play?" It's like, well, that's part of it, but there's a lot more that goes into it. So when you really kind of look at it, you go, "Oh wow, this is a lot going on," because through the program, and we've already hit on it, is you're going to complete up to 16 to 20 months of internship spread across at least 3 different types of facilities, or 3 different facilities, and that gives you exposure to different things, and you get to see areas of the country, and you get to, just like you said, you're thinking sales rep world, and you start seeing Virgil Herring start to teach, and you're like, wait a minute, like, then maybe this is the path. And
right,
and everybody sort of decides their own niche, and mine specifically being education. I've been a head professional, but I always liked the mentoring aspect of this, and I was lucky enough through this to, part of the reason I even did this job back 14 years ago, was to gain a graduate degree.
Right.
Because I knew that working for an institution, they would pay for it. So the first box I wanted to check was, I think I want to get an MBA, because who knows how this golf thing will sort of pan out. And it ended up being that I wasn't the one in charge of it. The good Lord pointed me in this direction, and everything has sort of fallen into place ever since. But having the opportunity to go literally anywhere. I mean, anywhere you want to go and get exposed to whatever you want to do is what you can do through the internship process. And what that ultimately does is it allows you to pinpoint and narrow your focus.
Right.
You start to figure out, I like this, I don't like that. I don't like this area of the country. I like this area of the country. I like this type of club, not that type of club. I want this responsibility. And those things, you start to kind of mold what it is where you're really going to focus in.
Right.
And you can still pivot in the industry. It's not to say that because you pick one thing, you can't, you as well, you've got the experience. If you wanted to go back and potentially get into a traditional golf professional role and go into doing merchandising and still teaching on the side, you could do that because you have the training for that, even though instruction has been your focus. And I think that's the beauty of it is the variety and the ability of what you can do and the manner in which you get there.
No, that's 100% right. I mean, it's funny because where I'm at now, obviously I'm in charge of all the instruction, but there hasn't been a pro here in a while. And so I walk in the shop and, it's just depressed a little bit. And I was just like, hey, man, why don't we, move this display around a little bit and just see what happens, right? And then, we move it around and, the boss walks in and he's like, something's off with the force. What's wrong? I was like, well, I might have moved the display around a little bit. I got bored for an hour and I decided to mess with your golf shop. And just there's a kid who's here. He's served in the Air Force for a while, and then he tried to play for a minute. Now he's at MTSU getting his pilot's license, but he's also started his book work. He's passed his PAT. He's done the intro. He's about to start level 1. And so, he's been kind of just harassing me about stuff, and I was like, hey man, look, I'll help you out with however you need to get through this. I've done it all. I mean, it's obviously a little different now, but it's still the same stuff. And so that's where I was showing him the shop. I was like, hey, look, every time you walk into a Golf Galaxy, where are the golf bags? Top shelf under the lights. Yeah. Are they stuffed underneath this cabinet? No. Yeah. You gotta put things where people can see it. And we just talked about different things like that, right? And so it's been interesting from that standpoint because he's all jacked up to get into the business, right? And it's been, I graduated in December of 2011, so that's it's pushing 10 years at the end of this year. It's a new energy. I haven't had that level of interest to be that jacked up to be a golf pro because I've been a golf pro for almost a decade, which is crazy. But it's fun to see that again. I can only imagine for you. I mean, you see that every day with 100 some odd kids, in the program that kind of 26 states is crazy. By the way, I don't think it was that many when we were there, but that North-South tournament has got to be confusing as crap now.
It always has been.
It's always been a blend. But talk. Obviously we talked about the education portion a little bit, but talk to us about the internship program, right? I mean, obviously I did 3. I went to Southwind in Memphis. I did Overbrook in Philly, which was a stone's throw from Aronimink and Marion. I ended up at West Haven, which is where I ended up going back to work. That internship program, obviously it helps kids get experience, but what are some of the other benefits to these internships that these kids get to go on? Why do we have to do it?
Man, there's so much. So part of it from a technical standpoint, the PGA of America, expects a level of competency, not only with your education, but with your experience to be able to call yourself a PGA professional. And for us, the internship deal is, I think if I have a son or daughter who goes to college and doesn't pursue whatever they want to pursue, it's not golf, I would encourage them to do internships in whatever field they're going to be in, no matter what, because you get to graduation and you've got 16 to 20 months, almost 2 years worth of experience under your belt. You've sat through a ton of interviews, and you're so ready to take on the industry from a professional standpoint. You're set up because you've now worked, you have some experience.
Right.
And that's not to knock a degree that if you were just to go get a business admin degree and you never worked through college, I don't know how you would be really prepared for what was about to come at 22 years old.
Right.
Not having really any work experience in a professional setting. for us, the internship stuff, there's so many things that are tangible in its understanding of like what the benefit is. Of course, we get out and get exposed to the industry. You're expanding your network. You're seeing areas of the country. But you're also, the other side to it that I tell students is you're growing as a young person.
Right.
You're 19 years old and you're going on a summer. You're moving to Memphis, Tennessee. Not knowing a thing about Memphis except they do the St. Jude and the barbecue's good.
Yep.
And Elvis.
That's right.
And you got to go up there and you got to get your place. They've got you a place to live, and you go show up not knowing a soul in Memphis, Tennessee. And now I've got to go to work.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you're a 19-year-old young man, a young female, working a 40 to 50-hour week, making money, learning your craft, and being exposed to things, and it really forces you to mature quickly, very quickly. You especially for like somebody like you who took the leap of faith to move so far from home, that at that point it would have been Memphis, Houston, Seattle, wouldn't have mattered to you. For me, it's like I worked in Alabama, then I worked in Virginia, then I worked in California, and I just sort of went further and further from home. And the more that I did that was on my own, the more that I grew. One of the things I talk about all the time, and it's an adage for a lot of different things, instruction for sure, but I always tell the students, growth and comfort don't coexist. We have to find things that make us uncomfortable so we can grow as young men and women and start to better ourselves, because you've probably said this to students, if you're not uncomfortable, I'm probably not teaching. Right? I mean, it's like, I have to to get something you've never gotten, you got to do something you've never done.
Right.
And these opportunities, so many times, it's just like you heading back to Nashville. If you don't go to West Haven, you're not in Nashville, you're not meeting your wife, you're currently, I mean, there's so many things that fall into place because of the decisions you made. I met Erica after I turned Pebble down for the second time. They called me again. I don't even know if you know this story. In 2010, when you were in school, they called me again.
I do remember that.
And they wanted me to come back, and I was really toying with the idea, but then Erica and I started dating. So I take a leap of faith that I need to see this through. I turned Pebble down for a second time, and they're like, if you turn this down again, you're not going to get this offer again. I'm like, I understand. Like, I'm good, and I end up staying here, and that's how Eric and I get together, and how I find my wife. And you're a similar situation of being in Nashville, and really you got to Nashville right before Nashville sort of boomed. Yeah, I mean, you sort of saw this happen.
It's been nuts. I mean, so I showed up in 2011 in January, did my last rotation through August, and then went back, graduated, and came back full time in 12. And like Nashville was still like starting to pop. It was starting to to blow up. It wasn't quite the bachelorette capital of the world yet, but it was becoming one. and so the thing that drew me to it was like, because for me, I'm an outdoorsman outside of golf, right? So I like to go hunt and fish and hike and camp and stuff. So like I could go an hour anywhere and I'd end up at a park, and I could do that.
Yeah.
I'd go 30 minutes up into Nashville and I could go, watch a Preds game, Titans game, Sounds game, concert, whatever, man. There's always something to do. And so that was what drew me in. But it was funny I mentioned the Oakmont thing. So I was really trying to land that Oakmont job because I wanted to work for Bob Ford, and I wanted to get that on my resume, because I'm like, if I have that, and I have a close friend who worked with my dad who's a board member at Baltusrol, I'm like, if I got him and Bob Ford on my resume, any jobs on my table. And it was about 4 or 5 weeks straight of no contact from Oakmont, and then Chris calls me from West Ham. He's like, hey, we want to hire you, what do you say? And I was like, I called him back one more time, gave it a couple more days, no answer. I was like, I gotta go with the one in the hand. So call West Haven back, like, Chris, I'm in, let's go. We set everything up, and then 2 weeks later, Bob Ford calls me from Oakmont and say, hey, are you still interested in the internship position here at Oakmont? And I was like, oh man, it's like, you gotta be kidding me. And
great timing.
Yeah, right. And so right there on the phone, I said, hey, look, I already took a position at West Haven. I appreciate you calling me back, but it's been so long since I heard from you guys. I just had to go with, I was running out of time. I had to go with something. And he's like, no, I totally understand. We should have been faster. I'll keep your resume on my desk, and if you never need anything, call me. And I was like, well, that's a better turnout than I expected. And I was talking to my dad about that, and he goes, you did the right thing by not calling Chris back and saying, hey, by the way, I'm out. I'm going to Oakmont instead. But sticking to what you chose, and like
Absolutely.
you said, I wouldn't have. I'd make that decision 1,000 times over. I wouldn't have changed that. It's been the best thing to happen to me, both personally and in my business. And again, it just speaks to our program's ability to place those jobs. Mark went up there and worked for him, lead him. And now that kid, I don't even know what he's doing. He's off in,
That's right,
doing whatever he's got going on now. But it's like some of the places that might, like Williamson,
selling yachts, doing something.
Hey, look, he ended up making money on that Top Flight commercial. You remember that?
I remember that. Yeah.
Like
gamer commercial or whatever it was.
I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, dang, I know that golf swing. And then I send up texting Mark. I'm like, hey man, there's a guy on TV that swings it just like you. Was that you? He goes, yeah. I'm like, all right, you can stop messing with me now. Like, was it really? He goes, no, seriously, that was me in the commercial. I was like, what the crap? And then I think Tony ended up being like a hand model or something like that, and he got a check for something too. But it's amazing to hear some of the stories where people have ended up, and I don't know how many facilities you guys have on the docket, but I can only imagine it's hundreds.
At the moment, it's sometimes you get you talk about housing, and it's a buyer or seller's market. Like right now, it is definitely an employee / graduate / potential intern market, because the industry as a whole, it's a really unique time. Back when I graduated and you would have started, that's the housing bubble burst. Yep. The quote recession. Gas was $4 a gallon.
Yeah.
There was a lot of bad right around that time. Jobs were hard to come by. Salaries were pretty low, and the industry just didn't have a great vibe at that time.
Right.
And it was really, really long days and low pay, and but we're seeing now this change, and really the last 3 years, it's gone this way. We're probably feeling, my goodness, I bet you we've got a book or a file on my desk that's got 850 internship sites.
Oh.
It's probably, you start talking about right around 100 students. We can sort of do the economics on who's in demand.
Right.
And I get to a point where I struggle knowing that we can't fill all these great positions, that we've got top 20 clubs calling us saying we can't get an intern, and they're in such high demand. This sounds crazy. I had to talk a student into going to Sea Island. Like, I had to talk him into it. It's like, it's Sea Island, son. Like, this is one of a Diamond Resort tour event, PGA Tour players. Like, I can't believe this is even like a should I go there like kind of thing. But the opportunities are so great right now, and I don't like, between you and I'm not great on them having that much power.
Yeah.
But right now it's like I said, the students have a lot of opportunity, and for the industry's sake, you're seeing it in Nashville, I'm sure. The industry itself, the PGA of America, 28,000 men and women golf professionals. At the moment, we have a relatively aged membership. A lot of our golf professionals are baby boomers, and we're talking about over the age of 50, 55. Retirement's coming soon, and half of our membership is that we're at a spot where there's a little bit of a storm coming of a great need for golf professionals, especially because COVID dealt us this hand of now people are interested. Well, if we don't have professionals in place I heard the Colorado section is using this retain the game thing going into this year. I think that's a great sort of thought about, now we've got people in the game. Now, how do we keep them? Keep them in here? And that's going to take professional advice and professional instruction and PGA members to sort of lead the way on that and carry the torch for the industry and keep us moving forward. Because all of us that get into this, like, we all do it because we love the game. Period. Like
Right.
I tell every prospective student, if you don't love golf, and I'm talking love it,
Yeah.
it's going to be a difficult industry because I told a student this morning. Jobs have hours, careers don't.
Right.
If you're counting your hours, you're probably in a job.
Right.
But if you're simply doing what you are passionate about, look, you're not going to love every day.
Right.
I'm sure that giving a lesson in 31 degrees outside, I mean, that's not something you're just dying to do.
Not currently.
But
got a nice little dojo.
For the most part, there you go. But for the most part, we all really love the game, period, and don't
Right.
think about the time we're putting in. We're thinking about the impact that we're having
Right.
on people and things like that. So the industry right now is ripe for anybody who's trying to get into this to really get to a point where like salaries are going up.
Yep.
and we're really seeing that to where starting out salaries are getting into that mid 40s, that lower 50s, and especially if they have teaching opportunities and
Right.
tournament commission and merchandise commissions
Right.
and things like that, where it wasn't like that
No.
12, 13 years ago. So it's a much different set of circumstances. We're hearing from so many places that need assistant professionals because they haven't been able to afford assistant professionals in the past. And we had 22 seniors graduate in December. They were all hired by mid-September.
Oh my God.
You know, I mean, it was, and then I'm getting calls from places in October, November, like, do you got any graduates in December? I'm like, they're all hired. And they're like, what? It's like, you got to get on them early. So I've told so many people, if you want help, like
Yeah.
you need to get on me quickly, and we need to kind of get on them quickly. Because even what you're saying, you had options on the table when the industry really wasn't great.
Right.
Now it's magnified.
Yeah.
So it's a good problem for us to have. I really hope that we can provide the industry with enough professionals over the next 5 to 10 years as our older members that have sort of paved the way for us as they retire. Are we able to keep the steam going for the game right now? Because the PGA Golf Management universities are who are providing that, that talent pool into the industry.
Well, and it's funny you bring that up because there was a time, either when I was just getting out of the program or just turning pro, that they were saying there's too many of us coming out of these things, right? There's not going to be enough jobs. And that's part of what you're saying there, that just at that time, it kind of was. And then to speak on the retirement thing, I sat in one of our section board meetings, and one of the guys that sits on the national board was like, hey, look, the numbers show that we're probably going to lose half our membership in the next 10 years. And I sat there and was like, we got a problem if that happens. Like that's crazy.
Right.
And so, but then, then Jeff, I was talking to Jeff maybe, I think it was the last time I was down there, maybe for that presentation, that he was telling me that it looks like, getting kids to go to college, let alone PGM, is going to become a struggle. So what have you seen from the recruitment standpoint, and what are some of the challenges you're facing now with trying to get kids to sign up for the program?
There's certainly some challenges that have presented themselves in terms of college is expensive. That's no secret. It's expensive to do. It is college is an opportunity for you to set yourself up. You and I both look back on it now and know that without the opportunities and the networking and the internship and the money that I spent to go to school, there's no chance I ascend to the position that I'm in and all of that. With us, I think we're seeing a much more educated prospective student. I mean, I got my first email when I came to college. So now there's so much more information online. There's so much more opportunity for them to understand what the program is before they start it. So
Right.
I think we're seeing the students that we sit down and speak with are much more knowledgeable on the industry and on what the requirements are. But Mississippi State as a university has stayed relatively level with enrollment, but it grew for the last 10 years. And then I think it's sort of hung out at, we're roughly 20 to 22,000 total undergrads at Mississippi State. And that we were 14 when I was in school, 15, something like that.
It was up
For us specifically, you're absolutely right that there's now and I don't think it's a bad thing. College isn't for everyone. Not everybody should. Not every career path in whatever it is you decide it requires a college degree.
Right.
And I think that over the years we always looked down on. We had a tendency, not we, but like as a society, looking down on skilled labor,
right,
and propping up, white collar, type positions. And I think that we're seeing a shift somewhat back to that, where you're going to see people stay closer to home, go to vocational school, go to community college, and learn a technical skill, because the world's always going to need mechanics, electricians, plumbers, and some of these people, it from just building your house.
Oh yeah.
Trying to get some of these people to do anything right now, they're so busy.
Yep.
So we've sort of shifted as a society to where those things are never going away. So we understand, you and I, look, we're in a leisure, it's a lifestyle. Golf is a lifestyle. Everybody who plays and listens and consumes golf, it's not, you don't just kind of play.
Yeah.
Golf consumes you, and it becomes part of your DNA. And we serve an important role for people, but it is still at its core, it's a game. Right. It's something that we enjoy to do, and it's something that people are going to spend their discretionary income and leisure time on. So what I've talked to with prospective students is they really want to know what's the viability of the long-term, what's their long-term goal of what do they want to do, and then how can they potentially take care of a family, right, and how do they ascend in the industry. Those are the important things that we see. But I hope that most students are more educated on scholarship opportunities, right, and Pell Grant stuff, and people aren't taking out tons and tons of debt, right, in order to do something that they may not finish. Because at the moment, I think 60% of people that start college finish. Yeah. It's something like that. And you realize there's 40% of people that are taking out debt and then never earning the degree they set out for. So that's a scary thing that I'm glad you and I can't really wrap our minds around. It's like, thank goodness that I worked at the university course making $5 an hour, to get through. So I know what it was like. Yeah, I know what it was like to sort of make a pizza last 3 days. Like, I know that life. And,
I'll tell you.
Lucky to have had the pizza to begin with.
Yeah, I'll tell you funny on that. I was on that second internship. They let me start my own junior program, right? On the side in the fall, and I was like Matt Junior's camp, right? It was really original, and kind of like my Twitter handle, or when I had one. And so I just make all this money teaching. Well, they ran it through the payroll, but they didn't tax it. Well, I'm 20. I didn't know that. I just was like, check, another check. So I roll into January, February. I turn 21, right? So you know what happens in college, and you're 21. That's right. You got a bank account stacked higher than you've ever seen. And so I just start burning it, man. And then April 15th comes around, and my dad calls me and goes, hey, by the way, you owe $4,000 to taxes this year. And I was like, excuse you? $4,000? What? He goes, they never ran your stuff through Social Security. Like, you got to cut a check. And I was like, oh, goodness. So I'm sitting there, like, because that's the year you go 12 months straight in school, right? You have a May semester, right, you're off, but you go 12 months. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I'm stacked up. If I do this for these months, I'll make it. Won't have to have a job. And so, like, that afternoon, I go call Tony. And I was like, I need a job at the course.
I need a job.
Boy. Like the second hardest phone call I had. The first one was when the 2008 hit. I was a sophomore, and the bubble pops or whatever. And that spring, my dad calls me. And he goes, "Hey, remember that thing where we were going to try and get you through school without a whole lot of debt?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You can forget that." And I was like, "Oh crap." I was like, shoot. He goes, it's cheaper for me to not give you this money and just to hang on to it than to actually give it to you, because I've just lost the whole time. And I was like, crap. But no, you make a great point about, like, it's I talk to a lot of kids all the time, right? And it's funny because one of the things I tell them when it comes to picking out colleges is, like, you got to be happy where you're going. Your coach could change, your teammates can change, but the school's not. The school's going to be there, right? The institution is not going to change. And, I think that's where a lot of people struggle, like that did what I did, where they go 1,000 miles away from home to go to a college, and then they find out 2 semesters in, like, man, I can't do this. And then they jump out, right? Yeah. And I think that's where PGM, for me anyways, helped create a kind of like a family unity, right? And all the tournaments we play, I never made a Jones Cut team, or when we played Sam Houston, State, I never played any of those teams, but still just to be able to support those guys, and run the tournaments. I was on that tournament committee for a while, and to be the president of the program for a little while, you start to get a sense of community. And as we kind of wrap this podcast up, the thing I wanted to kind of hit on at the very end was the bonds that we create while we're in school is truly unique, I think, because there's people that I still talk to on a regular basis. I have people like John Goen called me for help for something like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, you were my boss in 2008. I'm like, now you're asking me for a favor. I'm like, what in the, and so sometimes it's just like, it's crazy how things come around. And the thing I wanted to commend what you guys do down there is create that bond, and to keep alumni coming in to do presentations, like where I went down there and gave a talk, and having people come back and talk about their experiences and do things like that. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to in 21 and continuing these experiences for PGA program, and just kind of highlight that as we wrap this baby up?
Yeah, you hit on a great point there. That's, unless you've experienced it, it's hard to sort of explain. It's impossible because of the history of this program. And the same goes for like Ferris State was the first one. We're the second one. New Mexico State, Penn State. It's hard to go anywhere in golf in this country and not find someone who's been touched and influenced by those programs. But specifically Mississippi State, with so many graduates, you become part of this really strong alumni base of individuals that once they know, you've got a cowbell and a maroon polo, you're in. Like, what do you need from me? Like, oh, we used to eat here, we used to play here. Man, I hate number 6 at the yard because it's out of bounds all down the left. Just all these things, because we all have that in common. And to watch people come from all over the country and become so tight through the game is such an interesting thing. As a high schooler, in your high school, there's 4 or 5 golfers. There's 5 or 6 golfers. All of a sudden, you come to Starkville, you walk into your first PGM class, and there's 40 U's.
That's right.
You're like, oh, like, they all like golf like me. Like, and like to your point earlier, most of my groomsmen were college friends and golf professionals. And it's just the way that this becomes, because you're all doing it together. You're growing up together. You're doing internships together. You're playing a ton of golf together. And that gets created through the tournaments, through going to football games, through being alone, because you come down here and you don't know anybody. So you're forced into this situation of, I need to develop some strong relationships pretty quickly because I can't do this alone. Right. And for us, it's the tournament programming. It's the player development stuff we run. It's the trips we take. It's the team play. It's all the stuff that forges those relationships over time, and really allows us. My favorite thing about what I do is getting to know young men and women, seeing them show up at 18 as children and watching them leave as adults, and watching them, to your point back to John Goen, watching them come from, you were a know-nothing high school senior and you've been out of school for 2 years and I need to call and ask you for some advice on something. Remember, I did that with you recently where I was dealing with a difficult junior golf father. I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this. Let me call Matt. And you said to me over the phone, this is a rare moment if you call him to me, ask for advice. I'm like, hey, look, you got to know the answer to this. I mean, I called Scott Prim down at Timuquana when he was at Gateway, Ridgeway in Memphis, and to talk about his buying plan.
Right.
This is a student I had just taught 3 years ago. I'm like, share with me what it is you do with your merchandising plan. He's like, I'll send it to you. Nice. This is a really close-knit group of individuals that the relationship doesn't end at graduation. No. It continues on, because lo and behold, I'm going to see a graduate post something, or I'm going to see them put something out on social media. I'm going to go, hey, like, what was that drill you were doing with that? Like, what was the issue there? And they'd be like, oh, it's this and this. I picked it up from this guy. Like, It's like, I never thought to do that. Like, that's genius. So it's something that, if you've experienced it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is such a unique group of individuals that are willing to help one another no matter what. And we all are passionate about the game. We all want to grow the game. But we have in common of Mississippi State. And it's this off the beaten path, middle of nowhere Mississippi. We have so many stories of graduates who like had never even been to the South, didn't even visit the school, and came down, and it's the best 4.5 years that I ever spent.
100%.
And to get to still sit here and see that and do that. I mean, I talked to Blaine Merritt this morning. Was Blaine at Southwind when you were there? Or was he already at Sugarloaf?
He had to lay some repercussions down on me one time. Yeah, I know Blaine really good.
Well, if he's made it this far in this podcast, he'll get a shout out. I talked to him this morning for about an hour, and he really gave me some great advice. And everybody is doing something unique in this industry, and we can all help one another. You know it as well as I do. In the golf industry, we're all great thieves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We figure out, like, I like what he does and she does, and I'm going to kind of make this my own thing now down here. And it all becomes because we've all been in Davis Wade ringing cowbells. We've all been at Duty Noble having a few cold beers out in left field lounge. And it's just it's something that keeps us all so close knit together that if I had not had that community in college, I would have never succeeded. I needed that community of people around me that were doing what I was doing, but also knowing that I had an alumni base that I could call at any moment to ask for advice and reach out to, and it's something that I look on now, and it's funny. I'll have individuals is with a student. There's always one in your office. You're always showing them something. I'm like, well, I'm lucky that our students want that access to us, but I could not imagine not building the relationships with students that I do. I mean, and you know it from your instruction stuff. I can't just teach somebody golf and not know them.
Right.
Like I can't teach a student and mentor a student and help them out with internship unless I know them. So for us, it's such a crucial component because this is a people business.
Right.
We got to know how to interact with people, and that's my favorite part about this. When it comes down to it, it's all the people. It's the places you get to go, the things you get to experience are great, but the people are what make it the best. I mean, people that I would have never interacted with, I'd been outside of Alabama if I never left, but having friends coast to coast all over the world that are all common in the fact that they graduated from here is something that I don't think I would have had a concept of as a high school senior, sure, as to like how it would become. So just blessed beyond to be able to call golf a career and to be able to have done it through Mississippi State.
100%, man. Well, like I said, it shaped who I am today, and we've had a lot of the same people in our lives that have helped us get to where we are, and the game is the overwhelming center for all of us and how we got to this place. And so as we wrap it up, Adam, for the kids out there that are thinking about doing PGM specifically at Mississippi State, what are some ways that they can find you to reach out to you and maybe have that conversation that maybe gives you the chance to meet some more kids that want to do this?
Easiest thing to do, first of all, check out our website. If you'll just go to Google, Mississippi State PGA Golf Management, it'll be the first thing. pgagmu.msstate.edu is the website, but you'll find my contact information, email address, ascott@business.msstate.edu. That's .ms, two S's in there. And of course, I'm glad we didn't go with the Adam Scott joke at the beginning. So so anybody listening, let's just go ahead and, you're not the real one. Let's not do that, please.
I thought about opening with that, but then I was like, man, I'm sure that one's been burned one too many times. I'll save it for something else.
Well, the thing about it is people are mean. I'll show up at like a U.S. Open qualifier, like knowing if I play well, I'm probably not going to make it through if I happen to shoot a red number. They, well, you don't swing like him. I'm like, who does? Like,
I'm also not 6'3" and Australian, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, our waist sizes are different. So I get. It's a mean thing, but all of our information's online. But look, I spend a lot of my day talking to prospective students, emailing back and forth. There's no question that's too trivial, no question that like you're not going to bother me. I meet with students all the time. COVID dealt us this deal of now I do a lot of virtual calls with students before they come visit campus, because it's important for you as a young person, as much as you can fall in love what you're going to go do, the people are what's going to do it. And you have to be able to, your parents need to trust the staff of whatever you do. But specifically for us, I realize that we're falling in love with Mississippi State but it's the game of golf and the people that you're going to interact with that support it. So my life is, you're to check a box at the end of a year with a graduating senior here and go, like, that's what I invested in. I invested in this person going from here to here. And they can, my direct line here in the office, 662-325-1990. It forwards straight to my cell phone, so the electronic leash is always around. And I'm willing to have any conversation with anybody who is interested in golf as a career path and something that they want to do and be able to do it for life. And to be able to call golf your job is something that I would have never fathomed, and I'm lucky to get to do that.
100%. Well, thank you, sir, for taking the time out of your day to talk to me and share some of those insights and help anybody that's looking for this as a career to get a little taste of what it could be like.
Great. Matt, I appreciate you and proud of the work you're doing up there in Nashville. You keep doing what you're doing, and y'all keep growing. But I mean, with the influx of people and the amount of instruction that you're putting out there and the amount of content you're putting out there, you're really impacting people. I've told people this semester in some of the classes that golf has served as an outlet for people during difficult time. And we're really, you get that person who sliced it for 10 years, hit their first draw. I mean, they'll kiss you around the mouth. I mean, it is so we're really having an impact on people's lives right now, and I think it's important for us to note that. So I'm proud of what you've done. You've done great, and having a family and doing everything you're doing. I mean, things are going great up there for you. I can tell.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.